Joining us right now, really one of the greatest running backs in the history of pro football. To me, probably the greatest broken fielder. They talk about Gale Sayers, but this guy's right there with him. And look, it's an honor to have him on. Number 20, the great Barry Sanders. Barry, Joe and Evan in New York, how are you?
Joe, Evan, how's it going? I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on.
Doing well, Barry.
And Barry is the running backs coach in the Getting in the Game promotion. If you go to gettinginthegame.com, it's this app you could download for your iPad, iPod, iPhone. And he, as well as a lot of other great athletes, including Alex Rodriguez, Andy Roddick, Bill Parcells, who isn't quite an athlete, but he's a coach. He knows stuff about that. They will teach you the proper fundamentals. They'll teach you about coaching, and they'll help you perform at a very high level. So, of course, Barry's got the right title. He's the running backs coach.
Which he should be.
I don't think there's anybody else out there that can teach running and being a running back better than this man.
No, probably not, Barry. Not many. And Barry, I got to tell you this, too, because one thing I always really admired about you, besides how great a running back you were, is that you walked away from the game at the very top of your game. You were still a great back. You had plenty. You had certainly a number of years left at a very high level in front of you, yet you walked away the way you did. I always admired that. Was there ever a moment once you did that you maybe thought about it and said, geez, maybe I do want to come back? Did you ever have that moment, Barry?
I really didn't. After 10 years, I realized that I didn't have enough of that drive in me to continue to play, and I just didn't see any reason to hang around, and so it was never really a threat of me coming back, but I have to say I still had a lot of love for the game, and I still and so it wasn't easy. I will say that it was not easy to leave the game, but I had played the game for a lot of years, and it was just time to go.
Do you think it would have been different if it was a better team? I mean, the Lions were not great specifically that last year there. I think they were 5-11. If it was a better team, if you were a Cowboy or something like that, do you think that maybe the drive would have still been there and you would have played a few more years?
I think there's a possibility that that's the case. I think that when I look back at that last year that I was in Detroit, we had gone downhill from the year before, and we had made some moves that I thought made us definitely much worse team. And there was just no need to continue to over the next couple of years, and so I think that something like that very well could have made a difference.
Barry, another thing I always admired, I'm talking to the great Barry Sanders about you, was that you never got hit. I mean, I don't know what it was, because I never ever remember you missing any games at all. And the way you ran, I mean, you never seemed to take on a direct hit at all. I mean, how about that, Barry?
Well, I promise you I got hit some.
I'm sure you did.
I promise you. But you know what? I can't take credit for all that. I'm one that from the earliest times I can remember, I was studying, and I thought at the time I was just watching guys like Tony Dorsett and O.J. Simpson and Walter Payton. But as a kid, I was studying those guys, and I did everything they did out in my backyard and with my friends. And I was always the kid that was probably a little smaller for his age, and so that was the way I ran. But I imitated Gale Sayers and all those guys, and it certainly, and I just had sort of the type of frame, I guess, that that's just the way I ran, because I was always a little guy, and so I was never going to be I'm never going to be a guy that could just run over someone, and that was just my style from the time I started playing football.
Go to the website, getintthegame.com, if you want to download this free app. Barry Sanders will teach you the proper technique of being a running back. He's the running backs coach, so it's getintthegame.com. You mentioned your size. How often were you told as a kid, you're too small, Barry? You can never play in the NFL. You're 5'0". I think you were listed at 5'8". But were you told that a lot growing up, that you're just too small to be an NFL player?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, being an NFL player wasn't even within the realm of possibility. You just believe that, guys much bigger and faster and from other places and from different schools and from different parts of the country became professional football players. Certainly all-star, running backs. And so, like I said, I have to say this. I was one that's kind of a late bloomer. I was always undersized, and coaches always had that question in their mind. But when I stepped on the field with my peers, I always did a pretty good job. But since I was so small, there was always that doubt. And I started to grow a little more as I got to high school, and as I got to my senior year, I put on a little weight. But even then, I was still pretty small, and so that's why a lot of schools didn't recruit me. So, that's kind of how that happened.
One thing I could never understand too with you, Barry, and I think you played most of your career in Detroit with Wayne Fontes was your coach, right? I think the most part of your career was at Wayne Fontes.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Okay, you'd get to the goal. The Lions would get to the goal line, and then you wouldn't get the ball. I'm like, you got the best back in the world here. You're on the 1 yard line, 2 yard line. Shouldn't you be giving the ball to Barry? I mean, it seemed like Fontes, didn't use you as much on the goal line as I thought he should have anyway.
Yeah, what happened was after my, fourth or fifth year, and we had so many different offensive coordinators. I can't even keep track of how many guys came through here. And so at some point, one of them just believed in those bigger backs in short yardage situations, and that's kind of how that happened. And it's not something that I really appreciated because as a running back, you love getting in the end zone.
Well, sure, of course.
You love getting in the end zone. You love getting reaching pay dirt. And so after the first couple of years, one of those offensive coordinators that was just kind of passing through here through Detroit decided that that's what he would do, and that's kind of how that started.
But but you're Barry Sanders. We're talking about maybe one of the top 5 running backs that ever lived. I mean, couldn't you just look at this guy and say, hey, look, I'm Barry Sanders. I think I want the ball on the goal line. I mean, didn't you have you had enough cachet for that, Barry?
Right, I could have. No, I could have. I could have put my foot down, but I didn't. That's just at that time. That's how I decided to handle that situation. If I had to do it over again, I may do something different. I don't know.
What personal accomplishment, and I remember in your second to last season, I remember it fondly because it occurred against the Jets, final game of the year, you secured the 2,000-yard rushing season, but is there one personal accomplishment that jumps out at you that you're most proud of?
I would put that right up there, that 2,000-yard season in my ninth year in the NFL. Played with a great group of guys. Some of the linemen that I played with, they went out every day and they wanted to see me do well. And like I said before, that's my 9th year, and there's all these rumblings about, am I getting too old? My first 2 games that year, I had a total of 50 yards for the first 2 games, and of course that's when the rumblings were. Or more than rumblings that I've lost a step, this and that and the other. And then for the next 14 games that season, we don't have any games less than 100 yards rushing, and we run for 2,000 yards. That's probably right up there with all my best accomplishments in the game.
Barry, is it a disappointment? I know now you went to the NFC title game that one year, 91, and you got beat by the Redskins. That's as deep as you ever went in the playoffs. Is it a disappointment that you never got to that Super Bowl?
Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is. I mean, I say kind of because I don't know what else I could have done.
Right. No, sure. Of course.
But at the same hand, that's why you play the game. We're all warriors. We're all competitors. We all want to beat each other. You only have so many chances to go to the playoffs. The Super Bowl is the pinnacle, and man, it sure would have been nice to at least have one, and it's something that's so elusive though. When you play the game, you realize that because when I first entered the NFL, I just assumed I would play in several Super Bowls. You just assume that.
Right, right.
And then you play a year and you play another year, and man, you realize that thing is very elusive.
You ever look?
There's no guarantees.
Yeah, no kidding.
There's no guarantees, and it can easily slip through your fingers, and you realize that there's no. It's a very difficult thing to be able to get to the game and to win it is extremely difficult.
Ever look at Emmitt Smith and say, come on, man. I mean, this guy, he's running behind this elite offensive line. He's in this Super Bowl all the time.
Exactly.
He gets all this publicity. He doesn't know what it's like to be Barry Sanders and have to deal with what you had to deal with.
No, hey, Emmitt, I'm a little envious. I'm a little envious of Emmitt. But no, hey, he's a warrior. He earned everything that he achieved, and he deserves it. They had some great teams down there. And I remember. We'd be over at the Pro Bowl and you'd be at practice and you got Troy Aikman there and you got Nate Newton and you got, I think, one of the other linemen was Wisniewski and you got the tight end Novacek, and it was like half their team was a Pro Bowl team, And so it was like, teams were like, yeah, man, well, no wonder you guys are winning it all. But it was fun though. I mean, it was fun, and they had great teams, and I tip my hat off to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too. And again, we're talking to the great Barry Sanders because that, basically your whole career. I mean, I remember doing shows back then, Barry. We would go back and forth, do whole shows of who was better, Barry Sanders or Emmitt Smith. I mean, it was really you guys were real contemporaries, and it was 1-2 who the best running back in the game was. So I'm going to ask you, were you better than Emmitt? How about that? You think you were better than Emmitt?
No, I would never say that. Emmitt, he was too great of a player, and I love competing against him. I love being in that conversation. I was a kid at one time, asking that same question about Tony Dorsett and other running backs. And Walter Payton, for instance,
right.
So I love being a part of that conversation, and it was fun to play. And I can't take anything away from Emmitt. He was an absolute warrior, and I got to salute him for all he accomplished in the game, and obviously being the number one rusher of all time.
GetInTheGame.com is the website, free app, and Barry Sanders will be your running back coach. GetInTheGame.com. When they play football, assuming they do sometime soon, is there one running back in today's NFL that you like to watch the most? One running back you as one of the great running backs of all time, you kind of admire getting to watch him play.
Well, yeah, I mean, I certainly like to sit down and watch runners. I don't know if I have a favorite, and but I like watching the top guys run, and even sometimes even the up and coming guys. But I think it's impressive. A guy like Maurice Jones-Drew, who's a small, compact guy, but he runs a lot bigger than I did. He's more of a power guy,
right,
that has some elusiveness to him, and then you watch Adrian Peterson, he's just kind of a impressive physical specimen, guy that has world-class speed, but can still has a lot of power, and even the young kid out in Houston, Arian Foster, and then the kid over in Cleveland,
Peyton Hillis.
Yeah, Hillis, and the guy that he just gets it done, kind of a John Riggins mode, So I definitely still like paying attention to that part of the game.
Hey, Barry, we really appreciate it. GetInTheGame.com for anybody that wants to check it out. A free app on iTunes, iPad, iPhone. Check it out. Barry Sanders, your running back coach. And if you want to follow Barry on Twitter, very simple, Barry Sanders, @BarrySanders. It's an honor talking to you, Barry.
Barry, really an honor, and it was great watching you play as well, I got to tell you.
Guys, I appreciate you having me on. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.